to the More We Know podcast with your host and social media influencer, Mir. Gen Zs and millennials need...
Back to another episode of the More We Know podcast, where we try to inspire, empower, and motivate the Gen Zs and millennials, because the more you know, the more you earn, the more you get better. So that's the process. So today we have an exceptional guest, Ryan Scribner, who is a full-time YouTuber and blogger focused on personal finance and investing. He has over 640,000 subscribers on YouTube, and in 2019, he was recognized as the #1 must-watch YouTube channel for making money, according to Forbes magazine. He's been featured in Forbes Business Insider, and more. Ryan, how does it feel to be financially free?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it, man. I guess the main thing, what I like best about being free financially is just being able to spend your time doing the things that you want to do. So, on this Thursday, I'm spending time on this podcast with you, and I'm glad that I can just, schedule that as I like and have the control of my time to be able to do things like this and give back in different ways.
Absolutely, yeah, and thank you so much for being on here. It's truly a pleasure, and thank you for that time. So, a lot of people might know your face from your YouTube videos, your channel. You talk about personal finance and investing, but someone getting on this podcast, they might be driving to work right now. They might not know who you are or put a face to it. Can you talk about your background, where you came from growing up, maybe a little bit about your parents for people that don't really know your backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I have like a Cliff Notes version of this, and I have a long version of this. So I think I'll give like the Cliff Notes version just so it doesn't go way too much into my backstory. But yeah, I was your typical middle-class kid growing up. I grew up in a colonial house, with parents that were together. And so for the majority of my childhood, up until I was like 15, I was middle-class lifestyle. Pretty much most of the things we needed, we had. Whatever groceries you wanted, you pretty much got them. New clothes for school, etc. But then when I was 15 and my parents got divorced, both of my parents had to downsize into smaller places. And I kind of shifted from middle class to that more lower class in terms of my mom's income. So it was an interesting shift from having to having the ability to not worry so much about the price of groceries or new clothes for school, to shifting at 15 years old to buying stuff with coupons and going to Salvation Army for clothes and things like that. So I've kind of had the perspective of the middle class lifestyle, then more of a lower income lifestyle where you have to make those sacrifices. And combining that with a lot of the struggles I saw with my mom going on at that time, she had to make ends meet with her with rent and everything. So at one point she had to sell some of her jewelry and whatnot to pay for rent. And I got a job at 15 and kind of tried to help out where I could. At the very least, I was trying to cover my own expenses. So if I needed something, clothes for school, or, if I wanted spending money, that all came from me. So I kind of had both sides of that when I was younger. And then my dad's a financial advisor. So when I was younger, I always was exposed to, smart money moves, smart money decisions. I ended up going to college, getting a degree in electrical construction, and I got a job for my local power utility in 2015 after I graduated. And I worked there for a little bit over 2 years. Was not super passionate about that job. I've always really liked working with people, teaching, and that kind of thing. And I've always been super fascinated with the money in the stock market. But I worked for that job for about 2 years, started a YouTube channel as a little side hobby, and it scaled up relatively quickly, mostly because of the time that I got started. This was October of 2016. But the motivation behind my channel was, I had that perspective of kind of seeing the middle class lifestyle versus somebody who's more hand to mouth, or whatever the expression is there. And so I kind of saw like, all right, when you don't have money, your life can really be a struggle. And I was motivated to figure out, why is it that a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck or in credit card debt? And I think a lot of it came from this educational gap between what you learn in school and what you need for the real world to succeed. And I felt that I was blessed being somebody raised by, my dad being a financial advisor and mostly getting good advice for finances. All good advice finance-wise. Parents always have a mixture of some good advice, maybe not so much good advice, but the money stuff was always good. And a lot of the stuff that I took for granted, I found just by looking at my peers and coworkers, this wasn't necessarily common sense. So I decided to take some of these things I had learned growing up, some of the things I learned on my own, and put them into, YouTube videos. And that was pretty much the inception of my channel. And it really started more or less, it 100% started as just a way to have a creative outlet and to feel like I was making a difference in the world. But it quickly scaled into something that was actually a moneymaker for me. And then it got the gears turning in my head. I was like, man, I'm, working this 9-to-5 job. It has earnings cap. I can only make so much money. I don't like what I'm doing day to day. And then I have this other thing that I do part-time that's a lot more interesting, a lot more fun. It gives me more freedom. And so in 2017, I actually made the leap of faith, as they say, and I went over to doing my YouTube channel full-time. And then from there, I scaled up that channel. And in 2018, I started a personal finance blog. I actually acquired it. So I didn't come up with the name, but I bought the name from somebody else, which is InvestingSimple.com. And so now day to day, I'm pretty much involved in overseeing and managing that blog and our team of writers. And I also do, my one video per week on my YouTube channel. And it's allowed me, after many years of building this up, to have, relatively passive income coming in, assuming I continue to do my work on the blog and, do my weekly video or so. And so now I'm kind of in a position too, where not only am I spreading the message of, this important finance stuff that's not really taught in school, I also kind of like to use myself as an example of like, hey, this is what's possible 4 years in when you've dedicated your time to something like this.
Yeah, that is such an amazing story, especially to hear the fact that you went from middle class to lower class. That's a tough barrier. And mentally, I wonder how mentally you were able to see the vision of, I'm in lower class, but I can get out of it. Because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, people that are born into poverty or lower or middle class tend to stay on that cycle for the most part. Mm-hmm. You agree?
100%, because I'm the first person in my family to really ever take a risk. I come from a family of finance people. Like my dad's a financial advisor. My uncles are like accountants and bean counters. And that's like also what some of my grandparents did as well. So like, that's what my family path was generally, was everybody got some form of college education, and then you became an accountant, or you got into something related to being a financial advisor, or you sold insurance. So it's a very, conservative path, like low risk. And like my dad being into money was very risk averse. So he was not thrilled with my decision when I told him, hey, I'm quitting my union job with full benefits to go make videos on the internet. He was like, are you sure about that one? But yeah, I was like the first person to really take a risk in that sense of going off and trying to be a trailblazer, in that sense of not having that certainty. And it certainly doesn't work for everybody. There's successes and there's failures when you take that kind of risk. But what people don't realize is that I look at everything on like a risk reward profile, where if you're low risk, it's low potential return. If we're talking stock market, we're talking like investing in bonds. There's not a lot of risk there, but the upside is not much either, because, you're not risking your money. There's not much to gain there. But, if you go out there and you make a very high risk investment, you could lose all of your money, or it could pay off in a major way and it could be a 10x return. So I've always had more risk tolerance than most people in my family. And so I kind of said, you know what, I feel like I've taken this low risk approach to my life. Like I went out there and I bought the bonds by, going and working for this power utility, working this union job. And although it was a phenomenal opportunity and it was great income for someone my age, it was just not for me. And I just wanted to try, at least while I was young, something more entrepreneurial, because my whole mindset was, even if I fail at this thing, at least I can look back and say, you know what, I gave it a shot. Let's say I quit my job, it doesn't work out for me, and by age 25, which I am now, I can just get a different job. I'm not going to be like financially totally screwed. I can recover from that, because you know what, I tried something, and if it didn't work, I'll maybe end up doing something I prefer better.
That makes total sense. And you said you're 25 now. So how old were you when you started that YouTube channel?
So I started in 2016. So let me do the math on that quick. I would have been 20 years old, because in 2017, I turned 20. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was 21 years old. I was 21. And so I'm 25 now. And so it was also very beneficial to me too, because I had this ability to get something going when I had my time, because a lot of people may be listening to this who are, in their 30s, and they already have the family, they already have the kids and stuff. And it is harder. It's not impossible, but it is harder when you have your work that you do, and then you go home, and then you have kids to take care of. You got to get them to bed. You got to make dinner and do that. And then maybe you have that hour or two of free time in the evening where you dedicate it to something like I did. One of the advantages I had, which I'm thankful for, is I got into this when I was still living at home with my mom, didn't have a relationship, didn't have kids, obviously. And so I could dedicate that five hours a evening and really grind at this thing. And I also had my weekends where I could just dedicate myself fully to building up this business.
So would you say your secret to success was the fact that outside of your 9 to 5, you were working 5 to 9 in a way, like that quote goes?
Yeah, I really would say that. It was a lot to do with that. And also the fact, I will mention too, like the job I had, it was fortunate because there was some downtime with the job because it was a desk job. And, you could kind of do your own thing a little bit if you're, a lot of people would gossip or, read news articles or thumb through the paper. And so I would spend that time, kind of going on YouTube and just kind of looking at different channels, or, oh, that's a cool video topic, or maybe I would take 20 minutes and jot down some points for a video I would do later that day. So I did have that benefit too, where the work was not totally steady where I was. And, they kind of said, yeah, you know what, you got to occupy this desk. We'll kind of more or less turn a blind eye if you don't have any work to do for us, but you're just kind of, hanging out in case something pops up. So I had that advantage too, which was awesome. And there are a lot of jobs like that where, you have some downtime and you're able to potentially use it towards building something else, a secondary income stream.
Right. And I love that you said that. But look at your success, because I had a guest a couple of weeks ago, CEO of a plant protein company, 30 plus employees. And he was telling the audience that the best time to start your own business is while you're working a 9 to 5, because you're getting paid, that you have that cash flow, and then you can build your own business like what you did.
Yeah, a lot of people want to quit their job to start a business. And I really have to disagree with that, because I've seen it work and I've seen it not work, but it doesn't work more times than it does, because I've seen people that, their whole mindset is, oh, I'm going to quit this job to start this business. And you don't have to do that. And in fact, most times it's better not to, because most businesses that you start don't require 40 hours of attention right out of the gate. And so it's better, in my opinion, to start something up as that side hustle, like you said, you're 5 to 9. Or even if it's your 9 to 11, if you're a parent and you got those 2 hours at night, rather than binge watching Netflix, maybe you're researching, creating a Amazon affiliate site, or starting a little YouTube review channel or anything like that. It's something where you can start it small. And then if you have proof of concept, if you enjoy what you're doing, you can scale it up into, you can just add more time to it. You already have the framework and you know what the process is, and it's easier to then go into it full time. Because one of the things I will say for sure, as somebody with that entrepreneurial mindset, I always underestimate how much effort something is going to take by a factor of roughly 10x, where I'll think that, oh, I'm just going to dive into this thing and it's going to be no work at all. And it's just going to pop off, because I'm such an idea person. And I don't think as much about, okay, the execution aspect of it, how much work is this going to take? And so I think a lot of people are like that, where maybe they're working a job and they think they're going to start an Etsy business or something like that. And they think they can just dive right into it, bam, go. There's going to be 10 times as much work involved than you think there is. But if you're up for the challenge, that's certainly doable. But what you don't want, in my opinion, when you have the stresses associated with starting a business, is also having the stress of, I'm running out of money. Because the worst time to start a business is when you need money.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's the risk that you take. I agree with that completely. And now talk about your YouTube channel. You started that, you said, in 2016, correct?
Yes.
So what was the process like? Because you have over 640,000 subscribers now, but obviously you didn't have that many back then. What was the mindset, and what was your mentality going into the YouTube channel?
So when I started the channel, it was kind of more or less, I was also trying to kind of find my voice at that time, where I was still kind of I was a pretty shy person at high school. I wasn't really I wasn't the guy who was doing like, doing the morning announcements or stuff, or like putting myself out there or giving speeches to my class. Like I was quiet, I was reserved, I was kind of like insecure. And it's funny too, you mentioned your weight loss story. I had a similar story where like all through high school, I was, quite a bit overweight. And that was kind of like my identity at that time. And I always just kind of viewed myself as that person. But when I got into college, I had a decent kick in the gut from like, I had a relationship, my high school relationship came to a close abruptly. And like within the same week, I just was like running into what I thought were hurdles at the time. Like I had people, like I remember vividly, it's kind of funny. I was going to college, and this was like the week that I had just gotten my heart broken by my ex who had left me for another guy. I mean, she at least told me about it. So she was like, hey, I'm not going to cheat on you, but I like this other guy. So see you later. So then I remember I'm walking to one of my college classes, and there were some people hanging out in the parking lot. And like this guy just like whistles to me, and he was like, hey, your boobs look really nice in that shirt. And I remember like, it just like, it made something snap in my head or in something in my body. And I was like, I do not want to be that person anymore. And so as much as at the time that like hurt me, it also was so essential because I was like, you know what? I'm pretty much as low as I've been in terms of like feeling towards myself. I just had my girlfriend leave me for this other guy, and this other guy is telling me I have nice boobs. And I was like, I am done. Like I'm done being that person. And I remember I like went home, got a gym membership, and I was like, I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes. I started off running 12-minute miles, and I just chipped away at that and made fitness a priority in my life. I lost track of where we were going with that question. Where were we at there? I went on a tangent.
Well, yeah, we were going to go into the YouTube, but interestingly enough, I have a side tangent question. So now with your success in YouTube and your success financially, did the ex ever reach out to you again?
No, I don't. Maybe many years ago, but I think she moved to a different state now. But yeah, no, but see, here's the thing. When I started a lot of the stuff that I was doing, I started it with the mindset of, I want to prove these people wrong. I want to prove my ex wrong, whoever left me. And I want to quit this job, and everyone who doubted me, I want to be like, look at me now. And that's good fuel at first, but it really only gets you so far. Because that's very ego-oriented, that whole drive. And I think it's good, don't get me wrong. But it's going to get you to a point where you're going to be like, I want to prove this person wrong. I want to achieve what I'm looking to achieve, whether it's weight loss, level of income, having my own successful business. You're going to get there. And then you're going to go, okay, now what? And you have to figure out what's going to drive you to continue past that point. Because in my mind, I did want to prove that ex-girlfriend wrong or prove my people who doubted me wrong. And I guess I did because I was successful with it, but I found myself like, okay, what's my source of fuel now? So if you can shift or kind of have a mixture of both, maybe you want to prove people wrong, but you also should look at, hey, what kind of impact am I trying to make here? Or what am I trying to do for myself? Don't do it so much for, I want to prove so-and-so wrong. Also think about, hey, what kind of impact do I want to make on the world? And like, what do I want to do for myself? And so it also, for me, was just so important to have control of my time, which is funny because you mentioned like the financial independence thing earlier. Having control of my time was just so important to me because I just hated this idea of 2 weeks of vacation per year, having to work at a specific location every day. And it just didn't make sense to me. Yeah.
It's scary. And I think it was such an important point, Ryan, that you brought up about you need to find that fulfillment from within yourself and not always with the mindset of I need to prove people wrong, because I struggle with that myself too. So I think that's an important point that you brought up, and a lot of people will appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know anything about rockets, but I believe like when a rocket launches off the earth, there's like that first initial source of fuel that gets them off the ground. And then there's another source of fuel that gets them to the moon. And so I kind of think, I like that analogy of like that prove you wrong. That I want to prove you wrong is like that initial fuel to get your rocket ship started. But then you got to find your long-term source of fuel, which is that more fulfillment impact type fuel source that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So in terms of YouTube, talk about from back then to now, how'd you go from 0 subscribers to 640,000 subscribers plus and only growing?
Yeah, the one reason is mostly just consistency. Because if you suck at something long enough, you get a little bit better each time. And that's kind of always been my mindset towards it. And I was always willing to improve things too. Like when I first started my YouTube channel, I literally was doing videos in my car, and I would go on my lunch break from work. I would drive over to the Walmart, and I would actually park behind the Walmart, and I would put a little flexible mount on my steering wheel, and I would literally just record my videos sitting in my car behind a Walmart. So that's where I started. And I remember after that, after I posted some videos, they're getting some views. I was like, all right, well, maybe I should up my production quality a little bit. So then I moved into, okay, I set up a whiteboard in my mom's spare bedroom, and I did my whiteboard style videos. But I'd say the two things that have helped me, number one, consistency. I've been doing videos at least every single week for almost 4 years now. And when you're putting that amount of content out there, it's going to get noticed. I mean, it's just a matter of time. You can't put that much energy towards something and have it not have some results. I'm not saying you would have the result that I would, since I got in at a very good time, but you just simply cannot commit yourself to doing something for 4 years and see no results. Whether or not you're happy with those results, that's entirely different. But the other thing is being able to take feedback, so mostly criticism at times about my content, and saying, okay, what can I do to improve this? And so, I went from recording videos in my car to, okay, I set up this little studio in my mom's spare bedroom. And then I would get comments from people, I can't read your whiteboard, or there's a glare, this looks like crap. And I would say, okay, well, maybe my lighting isn't good enough. Let me go on Amazon and let me watch some YouTube videos about how to do lighting. And then I'll buy that lighting and I'll set that up. And then, finding, okay, maybe the whiteboard videos aren't as engaging. It's kind of too much like a classroom, switched it up, tried something else where it was more of a personal approach. So just kind of continuing to evolve your content while, and continuing to improve while just executing on it and just getting marginally better each day. And it's kind of like, here's another analogy. People have seen like the 1% better versus 1% worse. If you get 1% better at something every day, that's like an exponential growth curve. But if you just got 1% worse, you're getting less and less. It's hard to explain, but look at that chart is very interesting to me. Look up like 1% better versus 1% worse, and you'll see getting 1% better at something every day is way more effective than if you were to just get 1% worse.
Yeah, that makes sense. And clearly it worked in your favor because you had that exponential growth. But did you ever hit a roadblock in your YouTube journey? Because obviously when you do anything on social media or online, there's going to be that sense of negativity from others. At some point, there's going to be a little bit of hate, right? I mean, do you agree with that? Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And like early on, like I remember when I first left my job, I was like stressing out about it. I was like, man, like I got eyeballs on me. Like I got friends watching me. I got family members watching me. I got people saying stuff behind my back. I know I do. And I remember I was so obsessed with like, I gotta just go, like pedal to the floor. And so like one of the first things I did, and this was, not a great move long-term, but that was when I was doing my whiteboard style videos where I had my whiteboard presentations. I said, in my mind, I was like, I gotta churn out more content. I gotta do 2 videos a day if I'm gonna grow this thing. And so what I did is started recording videos just like with a camera on my desk and just kind of talking to a camera. And I remember like, and it was kind of like that guy at college who made fun of my chest or whatever. I remember I uploaded one of those videos and somebody commented, and it was something along the lines of like, Ryan, this is embarrassing. You quit your job for this, Wow. And I remember I was like, man, that hurt, that stung. Yeah. But then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? He's right. Like I didn't quit my job to then plop a camera down on my desk and just record a video in my bedroom, And I said, okay, so I got to step up my production quality. And I know I'm saying that now as I'm recording in my spare bedroom at my house, but podcasts, more personal, it's a little bit different. But yeah. So I had this idea in my head, okay, if I want more views, I need more content. Then I tried that, had that kick in the gut. I said, okay, that's not right. And then I said, so what about just less content, better content? Make less, but make it better. And so then when I shifted into that perspective, things really started to take off for me. And I had one video in particular that was like my first video that went viral. It was really exciting for me. So in June of 2017, that's when I quit my job. I had 10,000 subscribers and I was making about $1,000 a month from my channel. And August, I uploaded in June to August. There was really not much growth. I mean, it wasn't really, nothing was really happening for me. It was pretty stagnant because I was doing what I was telling you about. I was just kind of throwing crap at the wall, seeing what sticks, trying to just make as much content as possible. And I remember I made a video that took some time, took a lot of thought. I was actually sitting at the gym trying to think of a video idea. And it's funny, I've thought of multiple viral videos just like in between sets on the bench press. So I remember sitting there and I said, everybody thinks compound interest is amazing when they actually like punch in a compound interest calculator and see the growth of small amounts of money. However, nobody knows what a compound interest calculator is. And if I make a YouTube video called like the compounded growth rate of 50 years of $100 a month, no one's going to watch that video. So I thought in my head, I was like, what does everyone want in life? Well, a lot of people want to be a millionaire. That's a goal that they reach for. And so I thought in my head, what's the smallest amount of money you need to invest per day over 50 years, or maybe it was 40, it was 45. It was age 20 to age 65. It was how much money do you need to invest per day for 45 years to become a millionaire? And it ended up being $5 a day, which is a pretty catchy title. So I made a video called How to Become a Millionaire with $5 a Day. And I uploaded that video, and right off the bat, I could tell this thing was hitting different. Like normally my videos would get, 500 views the first day. This thing got like 3,000 the first day. And I had 10,000 subscribers, so that was substantial. And that video, after the first couple of days, just took off like a rocket. And it ended up getting somewhere around 500,000 views in a 2-week period. And I grew my channel from 10,000 subscribers to 42,000 from that one video. And so for me, that was like my aha moment, like, man, like that was it. Now I have since then gotten kicks in the gut and things from that point forward, because obviously I'm not just a full-time YouTuber now, but at least it told me I was on the right path, and that substantially grew my audience. It was a good amount of revenue that came in. Like I think during the peak, when that video was getting so many views, I had like a given day where I made like $700 from ad revenue. And I was just so mind blown by that. I could not believe it. Was like, I literally just like made this video in my bedroom, uploaded it, 500,000 views, 40,000 subscribers. And I made $700 in a day. Yeah. So it told me that I may not know everything, but at least I'm going in the right direction,
Sure. Yeah. And I want to get into that YouTube revenue aspect, how it kind of works for the audience that doesn't know what it is. But real quick, what I want to mention is the fact that, would you consider that video as that positive affirmation that was like, I'm doing the right thing? Was that the breaking point where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
100%. Yes. That's exactly what that was. It was like, and it was really good because it was right after, and also I forgot to mention, in that time period, I also got a copyright strike on my channel for like referencing basically what it was. I remember I was like using an article as a source, but I copied a lot of the information from that article because, again, I was rushing my content. I was in the mindset of like, I was panicking. I was like, I need to put as much content out there as possible. I'm just going to throw crap at the wall, see what sticks. And I like threw a video together, one of those that I threw a camera on my desk, recorded it, super low production quality. And it was like a video on businesses Amazon is disrupting. And I didn't copy like word for word, but I used the same businesses and kind of some of the same pointers. And I got a copyright strike from that video from the author of that article. So here I am thinking, oh my God, like I'm going to lose my channel. Like you can get copyright strikes that go away. If you get 3, you can get in trouble. But here I am thinking like, my channel's done, man. Like I made such a dumb decision. But it was after that I pivoted into that more valuable content, less frequent uploads. And it was like almost immediately that video was one of the first ones I did, and it just blew up. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm on the right path here. We're good, Yeah.
Yeah. And if you were talking to yourself back then, would you believe yourself saying that you'd have over 500,000 plus and counting subscribers?
No, I would have had no remote. I wouldn't even think that many people were interested in learning about money on YouTube. I mean, it was totally like new when I started. There weren't very many money channels or investing channels. So like, I would have thought maybe 100,000 would be possible by this time, but like where I'm at now is just like mind blowing. And then you look at other channels like Graham Stephan, who surpassed 2 million, and it's like, there's a lot of people out there looking for, you know, this information.
Yeah. So what about, obviously when you start something on social media specifically, you're going to have people that want to do the same thing. Even for me, I started this podcast only a month ago. I saw 5 or 6 people from even my university that, hey, I want to start one, which is great.
Yeah.
It's almost like a compliment. But were there people that started almost copying what you were doing in your time? I mean, did that happen?
Yeah, there was a lot of people that kind of piggybacked off of what I was doing, but they're really successful now. Like, for example, like Nate O'Brien. I don't know if you've come across his channel on YouTube. One of my best friends. Like, he subscribed to me before I had 500 subscribers, you know? And he saw what I was doing, and he started his channel a little bit later than mine. And like, dude, his channel is blowing up now. Like, I don't think he has the subscriber count I do, but his views are like even higher than my channel now because he took it and did his own thing and put his own spin on it. So I'm not saying somebody who starts a finance channel now is going to have the same success. I'll tell you right now, you won't, because it's a lot more crowded. But, you know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in life. I mean, your buddies and friends or whoever at your university who see you're doing your podcast, they may be successful, they may not be. A lot of it comes down to the reps. You know, are they going to put in those 12 reps on the bench? Are they going to put in the reps required of podcast interview, editing, you know, going to bed at 1 a.m., whatever it takes? I'll tell you right now, the majority of people will not do that. And so I always think, you know, it's a very sincere form of flattery when somebody imitates or copies you. But I'm very much a believer in the abundance mindset, where like, if like my friend was like, I want to start a finance channel or something, I would not look at that like, oh man, this guy's going to steal my lunch. I'd be like, you should do it, man. And like, there's plenty of room for all kinds of creators, all kinds of content. And even when we started the blog, we were like, we literally started this blog in one of the most competitive niches that exist on the internet. Like, you have the 3 core niches of health, wealth, and relationships. Those are like the 3 core niches on the internet. Like, getting into that wealth niche, like, that is competitive as crap. Like, there is so much competition in there. Like, getting into that, there almost has to be something wrong with you if you're like, I'm going to go ahead and do that, because I was already familiar with the exponential growth curve, putting in all of your effort. Kind of like, I love the analogy of you plant that seed and the seed is germinating and it's coming up, and it takes time for it to be seen, you know, and all of that time spent is just that seed growing underneath the ground. You can't see the results, but you've planted that seed and you're watering it and you know it's going to pop. And so with the blog, you know, we were literally doing this thing, putting money into it, because I have a business partner, actually a friend of mine who lives in the same area as me. We went to high school together. I sat down with him and I said, let's start this blog. You know, I had somebody who was selling one. I said, I'll buy it. It's a good name. And he was down for it. And I remember, like, we worked our butts off. It was like 6 months later, we've got like 60 people on the site per day, like nothing. And like, he's looking at me like, what are we doing? And I was like, no, man, just keep on going. Just keep pushing at it. And now, you know, we're about 2 years in and the blog is getting 1,000 hits per day organic. And between all the other traffic, more like 2,000. And revenue wise, we're consistently hitting 5 figures per month, you know, in the $10,000 to $12,000 per month range, which gives our blog a valuation of over $100,000 from something that we, you know, started. But early on, I mean, getting into the pretty much the most competitive niche out there, like, you almost have to be you have to just have that mindset of like, if I don't stop, there's no chance, there's no choice but to succeed if I just don't stop. And so that's always been, I guess, the mindset that I've had with anything that I do in life. That's not to say that I wouldn't try something and not do it. Like, if you're getting feedback that this isn't working, like I've started ventures that I've stopped because it's just not aligning with what I'm looking for, or I just know it's not working. Like, I'm not saying that if you're 2 years into a business and it's burning money and it's just looking worse every day, I'm not saying keep doing that. But once you have that thing that you have that feeling about that, okay, this is going to work, or you're getting some level of success with it, that's when you apply that mindset of just like, if I don't stop, there's no chance but to succeed with this thing.
Yeah. Okay. So with that concept, and your blog name is what for the audience?
Oh yeah, it's InvestingSimple.com. And it's pretty much, it covers a lot of basic information, not basic, but easy to understand information about investing in the stock market, you know, and how to pick a brokerage account. Because I mean, there are so many investing apps out there today. There's new ones popping up every month. And people really do run into that information overload where they're like, hey, I'm looking to invest. I have no idea where to start or what the difference is between 15 of these different apps. So we aim to be an unbiased resource on these apps and helping people understand the differences between them and, you know, which one would best suit their investment strategy or what they're looking to do.
Totally. That's amazing. So that's investingsimple.com. And especially for all you college kids that are listening to this, you know, you're at home, you're doing Zoom online classes. You might not be learning this in school. So get on that website and learn as much as you can.
I appreciate that.
So the blog, when did you know that was going to be a success? Because you said at some point 50, 60 visitors. Now you guys have a business that you said, if in theory, if you sold it, you could sell it for 100,000, right?
Yeah, at least 100,000 now based on our revenue. I mean, it probably would come in somewhere around 200 to 250,000, which is amazing. Although it's only based on what someone else is willing to pay if someone's looking to buy a blog. You know, it's not something that somebody buys and sells every day. But we are going to scale that into a multi-million-dollar blog, and that's basically my retirement there, man. That's our plan, is to build it up for 3 to 5 years, sell it, and make $10 million, and then, you know, split it, pay our taxes, and toss that money into a passive investment portfolio, and then be financially independent at that point. Like the whole, I consider myself to be financially independent now because I still love to do what I do, and I'm not operating on anyone else's clock. But true financial independence is when you have money coming in without lifting a finger. And if you wanted to go to Brazil for 6 months, you could do that and not even bat an eye because you have money coming in just like a machine. So that's the whole plan there. But yeah, as far as the blog goes, what helped us a lot was this time last year, we acquired the domain name, the .com. So we didn't have .com. We were .blog for a while. It was InvestingSimple.blog. And it's really hard to rank for that because Google they prefer the .com domain. So we invested $5,000 purchasing that domain, which was a lot, but we purchased that domain, attached it to our site, revamped our entire site. And then all of a sudden, like 3 months after that, we started to see some meaningful traffic. All of a sudden it was 100 hits a day, nearing 200 hits a day. And it just kind of grew from there. But this year has been a big year for us. I mean, our growth has been explosive. Like in January, we may have had, I think we were around 300 to 400 hits a day from search in January. Now we're hitting 1,100. So we've like tripled our traffic from January. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole thing that I love to push, is like, people don't understand exponential growth, whether it's compound interest from investment returns or just the compounded return of your effort and energy going into something. Like, our growth was not substantial in 2019. In 2019, our profit from the blog was less than $3,000. And we probably put in 1,000 hours each. I don't even know, maybe more. So that's not a good hourly return. But this year, we're doing really well. And if we can triple our traffic again in the next 6 months, we'll triple our revenue. It scales up from there. So that could turn into a $30,000 a month income source rather than 10. So that's the thing you got to wrap your head around, is you're planting that seed, nothing's really happening. And then you have this plant that, if you look at it day by day, it doesn't look like it's doing anything. But once that thing's pretty big and it's got all these limbs and it's all growing at the same time, you know, it grows pretty quickly from there. Sure. But yeah, the main thing for us was just getting that .com domain, revamping the site, and bringing on an expert in websites. He really helped us with things like SSL certificates, site load speed, optimizing images, and those technical factors really helped us with our rankings.
Gotcha. Would you consider, you said you were looking at 300 to 400 visitors a day in January, and then you've had exponential growth since. Would you consider that due to the pandemic and people staying home, or would you also, is that a combination with the fact that you have this rise in TikTok traders now and Robinhood, and everyone's looking at more investing? So there's a lot of search engine going towards, man, Robinhood, what's Webull, what is Wealthfront, what's Betterment?
Right. I think it has a lot to do with that. And our traffic has tapered off a little bit because summer is the slowest month. It always is for my channel, and it always is for our blog for the last 2 years. So it's tapered off a little bit, but yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. First of all, we saw the first stock market bear market in, 10 years. So you have a lot of people, including myself, where you follow the philosophy of I'm going to wait for a substantial correction. I'm going to dive into the market. So I think you had a lot of people going, wow, it's time to invest. And those who did made out well. So I think you had a lot of that going on of new people entering the market. And in that, I can even back that with data from the brokerages I'm affiliated with. They said they had record high new accounts opened in like March, April. So that helped a lot. Sending everyone a $1,200 stimulus check helped a lot, because I'll tell you right now, a lot of that money wasn't spent, it was invested. So, you send someone you send somebody $1,200, they may think, all right, I'm going to go spend it. But, other people will think, I'm going to invest that money. I'm going to put it into the market. So that helped as well. And I think you hit the nail on the head too, with TikTok, with these new platforms, making investing more cool, I guess. TikTok makes investing cool. A lot of the stuff on there is higher risk, options trading and things that really, it's speculating. And again, if we talk about that risk reward profile, you have to be comfortable with, hey, massive upside, but I could also lose it all. And if you are, that's what investments like options are. But a combination of that, and also these personal finance and investing apps lowering the barriers to entry, that just snowballed into what we have today. Like when I first opened my brokerage account, I opened up a Scott Trade account. You had to have $500 minimum to open the account. You paid $7 per trade. And just to open that brokerage account, I had to print out this form online, fill it all out by hand, scan it on my computer, email it to them. It was like a 2-week process. Like you're not going to get your average millennial or Gen Z to do that. But when you can literally just grab your phone, click on an app, put it all in electronically, $0 minimum, $0 commissions, and have your account verified in 2 hours, that significantly lowers the barriers to entry. And then you're going to have more participants in the market.
Yeah. And you're an expert in the market. People can go on your YouTube and watch a lot about what you say about the market and stocks. In terms of options, do you also do options yourself personally?
Very little. I mean, like that's my fun money. I just play around with it. I actually bought my first options this year. I did a video on it. I bought Nautilus Options, which is like a home fitness company. They sell a lot of home gym equipment. And I bought a couple of call options for a total of like $500. And I did really well with them. I like doubled my money. Then I took that money and I put some of it into call options on Blue Apron, because I was like, oh, maybe the meal preps are going to do really well, and it bombed. So I doubled my money, and then I put half of that money into Blue Apron options and lost all of that money. So I was back to break even. And now I took that little $500 of fun money and I tossed it into some American Airline call options. This is what I would say as far as speculation goes. And obviously, guys, this is not any kind of financial advice.
Yep.
But I follow the teachings of Benjamin Graham from The Intelligent Investor, which is, speculate with no more than 5% of your portfolio. And also, don't funnel more money into that account, because let's say I have my $500 I speculated with and I blew it up and I lost all of that money. Well, that's a losing strategy. And I don't want to funnel more money into a losing strategy. But for me, I'm just playing around with it. And if I do well with it, that's cool. If I lose it all, that's cool too. It's merely, I think of it as a form of gambling or entertainment, honestly.
Yeah. And I think just like you said, we're not recommending anything here. It's not investment advice, but I think it's so important that you say that, because there's so many people now that are looking at this options trading as not necessarily gambling. They think they're either investing. And, I don't know if you saw that article about the Robinhood trader who had committed suicide. There's a lot of people aren't taking.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And a lot of people aren't taking it serious. So I think people can appreciate someone like you that drops authentic content to educate people and realize that, yeah, you might have got a 300% return in the Nicola option, but do you know what you're really doing? I mean, it's a lot of gambling. Like you said, I think you hit it on the money there. Yeah.
You just have to understand what you're investing in. Like that's the number one piece of advice I could give you if it comes to investing is, and this is not my, this is stuff Warren Buffett and some of the greatest investors have said, is like, understand what you're investing in terms of what does that company do, or what is this asset? What is the potential upside? What's the potential downside? And like, just for an example's sake here, I did a video on Hertz stock when it was blowing up. because I felt like I got to educate people on this. They don't know what they're buying. And I did a whole video about how Hertz had filed for bankruptcy, and it's most likely they're going to get washed out. And I had multiple people messaging me, and they were like, oh my God, I had no idea that Hertz was even bankrupt. I just logged on to a trading app, saw the symbol, and I recognized the name, and I saw it was 75 cents. So I bought a couple hundred shares or 1,000 shares. And then they're like, and then some people sold it and did well, but like some people also bought for $5 and they're like, yeah, I lost 80%. What do I do? I have no answer at that point. It's you're probably going to lose all that money. So just, even sometimes 5 minutes of research, like for those people, 5 minutes of research on Hertz stock, and you would understand this company is filed for bankruptcy and is most likely the shares are going to become worthless.
Yeah. And if people just spent a few seconds looking at the fact that Carl Icahn, who had billions in it, sold his position, that could help them too. So
exactly.
You hit it on the money.
Yep.
Yeah. So to transition into YouTube revenue from 2016 to now, how has YouTube revenue changed? Are you still making the money that you're making, whatever you can share with the audience?
Yeah, it's been consistent. Like as far as my YouTube revenue goes, I'll probably make the same amount from YouTube ads as I made in 2018. And in 2018, from the ad revenue for my channel, it was a little bit over 200,000, which is, it's amazing. It's unbelievable. But my views are pretty much consistent. Like I said, I'm kind of like 50% in the YouTube channel, 50% involved in the blog now. So I'm not fully dedicating myself to YouTube. But yeah, it's good revenue. Obviously, my channel being finance related, you're going to get paid more from advertisers. So that helps a lot. Like 1 million views for a gaming channel versus 1 million views for a money channel, you're going to have substantially different payments from advertisers, just based on the value of that audience. But yeah, it's been consistent. I certainly don't rely on it. The majority of my revenue comes from the affiliate side, which I like better because it's more predictable. But yeah, I count that as like the gravy. And as somebody who is a substantially higher earner than I guess most people, I don't act like it. Like I did go out. I remember like I did buy like my dream car, which was like a Nissan GTR. I bought that in March of 2019. I ended up selling it. I got some speeding tickets and I had my fun with it. And I was like, all right, I'm either going to have to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees and speeding tickets, or I'm going to kill myself in this thing because I was just driving it like an idiot. But it satisfied that itch for me. I sold it, lost a little bit of money, but I wouldn't regret that at all. I'm glad I did that. But other than that, I'm an owner-occupied real estate investor. I own a 3-family. So my expenses are very low, no car payments. I don't take on a lot of debt. Like I don't really spend money for my form of happiness or entertainment. I do like, going out to the bars and, when I'm not on a diet, I like going out and going to restaurants and whatnot. I'm on my post-quarantine diet now. So now I'm pretty much dialed in with my own eating at home, but I really don't spend a lot of money. I would venture to say that I save and invest like 90 to 95%. And of course, being a higher income earner, it's easier for me to do it than somebody working a 9 to 5. But yeah, I really just don't, other than like traveling and the other things I mentioned, I'm not really somebody who enjoys just like spending money for, on clothes or, I don't know, knickknacks, electronics. It's just not really, it's not really something I'm into. Like even the computer now that I'm on, this is like a 2016 desktop, still works, so a lot of people are always just buying new stuff and they need the latest and greatest. And I don't know, if it brings you happiness, that's fine. But for me, it's just doesn't really bring me that happiness or fulfillment. So I don't really spend money on it.
Sure. And that transitions into my next part of the podcast, where we talk about college students and Gen Zs and millennials, where the guests give advice to them. And I think it's important that you bring up the spending, because I do notice a lot of college kids who will buy a $400 Balmain or Gucci shirt because it looks cool on Instagram, but deep down, they're not getting fulfillment. That could have easily be invested in an index fund or something, etc. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, what's your advice? Because a lot of college grads did not have their commencement this year. What's your advice to college grads?
So I guess we'll do like a 2-pronged approach to this. So like my financial advice is understand that the more you take on in terms of liabilities, the less mobility you have. So me, for example, I had the mobility to leave my 9 to 5 job and invest in myself and try to build up this YouTube channel because I drove a 16-year-old car. Even though I had the money, I lived with my mom and I chipped in towards her mortgage and helped out with household expenses. I ate my own packed lunch every single day, and I spent almost no money other than like my gym membership. So because of that, I was able to save and invest. Like even at that time working that job, I was saving and investing like $1,500 a month. So I did that because that allowed me to have mobility. So if I wanted to change the direction I was going, that would oftentimes require me to take a pause and figure out, all right, where am I going in life? What do I want to focus on? What do I want to do? It's a lot easier to do that when your expenses are, let's say, $2,000 a month versus $8,000. And so a lot of people, what happens, and it sucks, they get into a job. Like I'm going to pick on sales because there's a lot of people in sales that do this. It's just the nature of that type of job and the people that work there. You can be smart with sales. You can make a boatload of money and save it all. But a lot of people, based on peer pressure, go out and they buy the BMW. They go out and they rent the loft apartment. And the problem with that is if you love that job, maybe there's not a problem. But if you don't love that job and you're looking to pivot, well, you've already stacked up these expenses and you're like, man, I have no choice but to work this job because I've got my BMW payment and I've got a closet full of clothing on my Discover credit card. And I've got, all of this other commitments financially. I don't actually have my mobility. So that's my recommendation is at least until you figure out where you want to be for any amount of time. Like, I'm not saying like I'm going to be a YouTuber in 10 years. I have no idea. I like it for now. But until you found something where you're like, yeah, I want to do this for the next 3 to 5 years, try to keep your expenses the main thing is the monthly payments. Try to keep those as low as possible. Like don't leave college and take out a $35,000 car loan, and maybe you go with the 1-bedroom apartment instead, or maybe you go with the 2-bedroom and you get a roommate, even though you might prefer to live alone, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to keep my expenses low because that allows you that mobility. And if you made a wrong decision, like so many of us have, like myself included, even though I did well with that job for the utility company, it was still the wrong decision because it didn't align with what I wanted to do with my life. But because I kept my expenses so low, it allowed me that mobility. So I guess that's my advice on the finance side of things. And my advice on the investing side of things is just to simply start, and I'm not saying go out there and do the options trading. I'm not discouraging it, as long as you're familiar with the risks and what you're doing. But like so many people out there, like don't understand how even $50 a week, $50 a month, over the long term, it adds up to a substantial amount of money. So if you're in a position where you can put any amount of money into a passive investing strategy, just start, and see, go on to the the compound interest calculator, punch in those numbers, play around with it and see like what you can really do with very small amounts of money over the long term.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. And that's a great advice to the audience. So thank you. What do you say to a 21-year-old who says, I'm scared to invest, I don't want to lose it all?
Well, you certainly don't have to lose all of your money. And that comes from, there's a lot of bad advice out there around the stock market. Like I remember one time I was having a conversation with somebody and they were like, oh, the stock market's a scam. Like you're going to lose all your money. And maybe, for example, you hear that too, like maybe a 21-year-old thinks that. And for a lot of people, the stock market has been a scam, like in the sense that they invested in a company that went bankrupt or in a fund that just never came back. And so what I would say to that is understand that simple investments like an S&P 500 index fund, that investment is not a scam. It's not complicated. It simply owns the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the US. And if you think America is going to be worth more in the future and producing more goods and services and having more bright minds, coming up with new ideas and technology, then the stock market itself over the long term will become more valuable. I mean, over the average return of the S&P 500 is somewhere around 10% over the long term. You don't see that every year. And like, for example, if you put your money in the S&P 500 in January, that sucks because the market tanked, but it came back. came back a little quick, but it came back nonetheless. So if you look at it from a long-term perspective, you know, it certainly could be a scam in the sense of you could buy something and you could lose all your money, or you could buy something, the value could plummet and never come back. But if you go for these investments that aren't necessarily so low on the risk scale that there's no upside, but something that's a reasonable risk and return profile that has a long history of making people money, you know, that's something where the stock market is certainly not a scam.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's great information, and you just made it easy to them to understand what the S&P 500 is. So thank you for that. Now, your advice to somebody in terms of on a personal level, what if someone's scared to start a YouTube channel, or scared to start a blog, or scared to start a business? What's your advice to someone on a personal level of how to navigate through self-doubt and hate?
I think the main thing that I try to remind people, because like I've been there, like I was the introvert in high school. I was not somebody who would go speak, you know, in classes, or like, you know, I would be the last one to raise my hand if like the teacher wanted someone to come to like read or something during the class. Like I had anxiety about it. I think the main thing that helped me is like understanding that vulnerability is power. Like if you think about the people in your life that you think of as the most confident individuals, they're usually people who are very vulnerable about their stories or about their lives, or like, you know, they just are open and honest. And so I just encourage people to be more vulnerable and understand that in some, like in many ways, the more open you are and the more you share, people are going to look up to you and they're going to appreciate that. And that's why I try to be as open and transparent with people as possible, because I've learned along the way that the more you open up, the more you share, people relate to that. And like, I know we talked before the podcast started about how you've interviewed some people that are at my level in terms of subscriber count or whatever. And you said they're almost like, you can tell that the money has changed them, or the influence they have has changed them. And I still hope that I believe in many ways that when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm about the same as I was a couple years ago. Because I want to be that's who I want to be. I want to be that person that's relatable. I want people to watch my videos and be like, holy crap, this guy is literally just sitting in his bedroom of an average home. Like he's not, you know, zipping around in a Lamborghini and saying, hey, you could be me. You can do this, man. Like I'm just an average dude. And I think that's what motivates and inspires people more.
Yeah, that's important. I think you hit it on the money. And on the concept of vulnerability, would you say that in your life you welcome failure?
I still get stressed out about it. Like I'll say that. I mean, I'm out there on like the risk reward profile. I'm not like Gary Vaynerchuk where I'm like, failure is great. I want to fail, you know, because that means I can learn faster and like get it done faster. Like that still scares me. Like if I buy into a stock and it tanks, you know, it still does trigger that response of like, oh crap, you know, or if I have a business venture that I'm trying and it's just not working, I do get nervous. And there are times even at the level that I'm at where I get in my head and I'll be thinking like, man, what if my YouTube channel tanked, or what if people stopped watching my videos and things like that. But I think it's just, you got to just focus on what you have control over in life. Like I don't have any control over whether or not YouTube is going to show my videos or not. I do have control over starting up the blog, so I have a secondary business to fall back on. So I would just encourage people to, you know, focus on what they can control, and that may help curb a lot of the anxiety. And just by being more vulnerable and sharing more, you'll kind of come into your own. Because like when you're not vulnerable with people, when you're not yourself, you're acting, and it's hard. Like, and I'll be honest too. Like when I first started my videos, I was a bit of an actor, and it's a lot more effort to act than it is to just be yourself. And so I would just encourage people, rather than thinking if you're going to start a channel or a podcast, you have to build up this persona of, I got my life together. You know, I'm a millionaire. I'm successful. You know, you could start a podcast and be like, hey, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm hoping to interview people who do, you know, so I can learn insights about life and you can as well. Like that, to me, that's powerful and it's relatable, as opposed to this whole like fake it till you make it type culture where you pretend, maybe like you said, with people in college buying the $400 shirts and things like that, pretending they've achieved something. I think it's better to just be yourself, and it's just going to be such a more relatable message.
Right. That's so powerful that you say that. And, you know, in a world full of, without mentioning names, you know, the fake gurus or people that are
Mhm.
faking that lifestyle, people like you make it possible and inspire others because you're so genuine with it. You keep it honest and you can go to your channel knowing that, hey, you're a regular guy and you're going to keep it genuine with the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's my promise. And if I ever break that promise, then I don't want to be doing what I'm doing anymore, you know, because I feel like that's my duty, you know, is to be that type of person. Because otherwise, if you're not being honest with people, you know, what do you have at the end of the day? If you can't look yourself in the mirror and say like, hey, like I can say with confidence, if anybody that I've ever, for the most part, I mean, there's some crazy people out there, but for the most part, anybody that I've ever had watch my YouTube channel or maybe even enroll in one of my courses, like if they saw me on the street, they'd be like, hey man, like they would like me, you know, they'd be like, hey, thank you, you know, you were helpful, or at the very least feel neutral towards me. Like, I don't think people would ever really hate me because I'm not dishonest. I mean,
Yeah.
some people might just for other reasons, but for the most part, you know, I'm not scamming people. I'm not pumping up crap on my channel and doing things that are actually illegal. Like, I mean, I see that happening on TikTok too with these people, you know, talking about these
Dogecoin.
thinly, yeah, the whole
Yeah.
Dogecoin or Dogecoin
Dogecoin. Yeah.
thing, and then
Whatever it
like
is. Yeah.
pumping up thinly traded penny stocks. It's like they need to familiarize themselves with like FTC, the FTC and the disclosures and things. So there's a lot of people that are operating very shady businesses and doing things that I certainly would not be okay with doing.
Yeah. And I think it's a testament to your growth. Look at your subscriber count and look at how many people you've empowered. So thank you for
Sure,
being genuine.
absolutely.
So my last question before concluding, because a lot of, you know, I ask my followers what questions they want to hear from some of the people I'm interviewing. Is it still profitable to start a YouTube in 2020?
I would say it is, but you have to be way more specific about what you're doing now because like, and I had the same conversation the other day with my barber because he was like, hey man, I see what you're doing on YouTube. I'd love to do that, but there's already so many YouTube channels about barber techniques and clipping techniques. And like my answer to him was like, well, then what you need to do is get in more specific. So like for somebody looking to start a money channel, like if you were to just go out there and you're like, I want to start a money channel on YouTube, that's a bad idea because there's so many channels out there, it's saturated. But if you were like, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel about growing a Etsy business to make money, that's a phenomenal idea. So I would just encourage people, I'd say, yes, there's still an opportunity here, but dig deep down into a niche and really become the expert at that thing rather than trying to be like a jack of all trades YouTube channel that covers money, making ideas, credit score, credit cards, you know, all of that stuff, which is kind of like what my channel was. It worked for me because I had that first mover's advantage, but that's over. It's saturated now. It's not to the point where it's impossible, but the channels I see doing well now are deeply rooted in one thing. Like for example, there's a channel I like called PPC Ian, and he specifically just talks about his form of dividend investing, and I think it's like dividend growth investing. That's all he talks about day in and day out. And although his channel is not gigantic, he has a good audience built and he has very good retention with his videos because people who like that strategy of investing, like he is the channel out there for dividend growth investing. So I would just encourage you to deeply root yourself in one niche and become the expert.
Gotcha. So that niche specific is key.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for that. And I always ask each podcast, the guest that I'm interviewing, what's your favorite book and what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is The Big Short. Really enjoy that movie. That's about the 2008 housing market crash. Great movie. As far as books go, let me think here. For your audience, I would recommend, well, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's really good, but most people have read that book. I really like The E-Myth. And I don't remember who the author is of that book, but it's really interesting. That book like helps you to understand the different roles within like a business. You have the technician, you have the manager, and then you have the idea person, the visionary. And I think that book would help people to resonate with which one of those they are. Are you a manager where you want to manage an operation? Are you just a technician where you want to just be doing the work and not have anyone bother you? Or are you the visionary who wants to come up with the ideas and let the team, you know, build whatever it is that you're looking to build? So that would be my my other book recommendation.
That's interesting. I do love The Big Short movie. I try to follow what Dr. Barry's doing to this day. So it is a
Yeah.
great movie. And I'm going to look into that book, and I hope the audience does too. So thank you for that. Last question. What's your daily routine for success? What's your daily routine for success look like?
I mean, honestly, like, one of the reasons why I left my job and wanted to do this entrepreneurial stuff is because I didn't like the rigidity of having a 9 to 5 where you got to be there at this hour. So I do take advantage of the flexibility, but for the most part, you know, I work like 10 to 3 Monday through Friday. I only work like 25 hours per week. But the important difference is when I'm working, I don't do anything but work. I don't chat with friends. I don't, you know, because what you know if you work in an office is a lot of the time that you're at work, you're not working, you know? So even though I only work 25 hours, I am like locked in for those 25 hours. I try to keep my weekends open and try to maintain a decent work-life balance. But as far as like my morning routine goes, I just started, actually I saw it on TikTok. I do, other than the whole data harvesting thing, I don't know about that, but I'm going to be honest, I use TikTok. I go on there. But I found this morning routine I really liked. So I get up, make my bed, I drink an entire bottle of water first thing, and then I write down 3 things I'm thankful for, and then I write down 3 goals for the day. And I've been doing that for like a month or so now. And it's, I don't know, it's just really helpful to me to put me in that mindset of gratitude, write down a couple of goals, keeps me focused for the day, work from 10 to 3. And then I spend a lot of time doing other stuff as well, like projects around my house or hanging out with friends and things like that. Because like, I'm not, as much as I love my business, I don't want this to be my whole life. Like some people have a business and they just want to work that thing 16 hours a day. And that's not me. I like doing other stuff in life. I recently took up golf, so I've been doing a lot of that. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. I try to be in the mindset of gratitude. I've been working on eating healthier to lose my quarantine weight that a lot of us put on. But yeah, you know, a good mix of time spent on work I enjoy and then exploring other activities in life. And I am a big traveler when there's not a pandemic going on.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that with the audience, and thanks for being on. Now, for someone that's eager to find out more about you and they want to go to your blog, can you reiterate to us, where can people find Ryan on social media? Where can they subscribe to your channel? And where can they check out your website if they're interested in learning more about investing?
Yeah, definitely. So there will probably be a link in the show notes or whatever for the blog, InvestingSimple.com. And then my YouTube channel, just type in Ryan Scribner and that'll bring you to my channel there. And then the other thing I always mention in podcasts too, is if you have like a specific question for me, like a burning question, if you will shoot me a message on Instagram and mention, hey, I was on blah, blah, blah podcast. I listened to you here. I had this question for you. I can't guarantee you I'll answer. I get a lot of messages, but I will certainly do my best. And I always like to invest my time in people who have invested in me. So if you took the hour to listen to this podcast, I appreciate you and I want to give back to you. So if you have like a burning question, just reach out to me, mention the podcast name, and I'll do my best to respond to you.
Got it. And can they follow you on TikTok too?
I don't post on TikTok anymore. I did for a little while to test it out, but you certainly can if you want. I have some videos up there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's Ryan Scribner. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, this was almost like a masterclass in a way, talking about YouTube and blogs and finance and just the inspiration and sharing your story to the More We Know audience. I appreciate it personally. I know certainly the audience will as well. So thank you for that time, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.